You know that feeling. You're scrolling online, liking things, maybe posting, but afterwards you just feel a bit off,
Huh.
maybe even a little more lonely.
Yeah, it's a really common experience, I think, and it's exactly what we're digging into today.
We are. We've got this fascinating new study just published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin. It takes a really close look at social media use and, well, loneliness.
Right. And what makes this study particularly interesting, especially for you listening, is that it tries to figure out if how we use social media makes a difference to loneliness over time. Because honestly, previous studies have been kind of all over the place on this.
True. So this research, it's led by James A. Roberts from Baylor University.
That's the one. He's done a lot of work on, how phones and social media affect our well-being. So he's definitely the right person to be looking into this. And it's super timely, right? Social media use up, but so are reports of loneliness.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into it. But hey, just before we dive deep, a quick reminder for everyone listening. Always check your mirrors before changing lanes. Simple thing, huge difference.
Good tip. All right, so this study. What's really impressive and important for you to know is the sheer amount of data they worked with. We're talking 9 years of information.
9 years, wow.
Yeah, from 2014 right through to 2022. It came from this big Dutch longitudinal study, the Longitudinal Internet Studies for the Social Sciences Panel. Bit of a mouthful.
Oh, yeah. But the key is longitudinal, right? They followed the same people over time.
Exactly. That's crucial. And it wasn't a small group either. They had data from 6,965 adults.
Okay, that's a solid sample size.
Yeah.
Any idea about the demographics?
Yeah, the average age when the study started was around 50, and slightly more than half were women. So it gives us a decent look at adults over quite a span of time.
And each year, they were asked about social media and loneliness.
Pretty much. They reported on their social media habits and filled out questionnaires about how lonely they were feeling year after year.
Okay, so let's break down social media habits, because we all use it differently, don't we? I mean, some people just scroll, others are constantly posting and commenting.
That's exactly the distinction they made, which is really helpful for you to understand. They looked at two main types: passive use and active use.
Passive use, that's the scrolling, right? Just looking.
Uh-huh. Reading posts, watching videos, looking at pictures, but not really interacting directly, like scrolling through your Facebook feed or Instagram Explore page. They measured it by asking people to estimate how many hours a week they spent just, well, browsing.
The endless scroll. We know it well. Okay, so what about active use?
Active use is, putting stuff out there yourself, posting updates, photos, videos, but it also includes interacting with others, liking their posts, leaving comments, sharing things.
Right, actually engaging.
Yeah, and again, they measured this by asking participants to estimate their weekly hours spent doing that kind of active stuff.
Okay, so the core difference for us is consuming versus creating or interacting.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, how do you measure something as, well, personal and subjective as loneliness?
That's a really good question and key for you to grasp how they approach this. They didn't just ask, "Are you lonely?"
Yeah.
They used a proper, well-established questionnaire, 6 specific questions.
Okay, like what kind of questions?
Things designed to get at different facets of loneliness, questions about feeling a sense of emptiness, or if they felt they had people they could really rely on, or, how connected they felt to others generally.
So standardized questions to try and quantify that feeling.
Exactly. Participants rated how much they agreed with each statement, and then the researchers combined those responses into an overall loneliness score for each person each year.
Which lets you track changes over that 9-year period.
Precisely. And see how those changes relate to their reported active or passive social media use. And this is where the findings get, well, pretty compelling for you. But hang on, before we get to the results, another quick heads up for when you're on the road. Put the phone away. Avoid those distractions. Just focus on driving safely. Okay, you ready for the findings?
Yeah, definitely. Did more scrolling or more posting actually predict feeling more alone down the line?
Well, here's the big takeaway for you. The study found that both passive and active social media use were significantly linked to increases in loneliness over time.
Both. Okay, the passive part kind of makes sense, maybe. Just scrolling, not connecting.
Right. Higher initial passive use, just that browsing did predict bigger increases in loneliness in the following years. It suggests that just consuming content can, in fact, contribute to feeling more isolated.
Wow. Okay. But the active use part, that's surprising, isn't it? You'd think posting and commenting, interacting online would maybe help with loneliness.
That's the kicker, really. And maybe the most important finding for you to think about. Higher initial active use also predicted a sharper rise in loneliness over the 9 years.
Seriously. So
Huh?
even trying to engage online didn't necessarily help. It might have made it worse.
It seems so. It really challenges that common idea that just interacting online is a fix for loneliness. It suggests that maybe those online interactions, even active ones, aren't fulfilling our social needs in the same way real world connections do.
Huh. That's, yeah, that's a bit of a downer. Like, you put in the effort online, but it doesn't pay off in feeling less lonely.
It really makes you question the quality, doesn't it? The quality of online versus face to face. And James Roberts, the lead author, he put it very bluntly. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Our results confirm my suspicions that no matter how it's used, social media is a poor substitute for face to face interaction."
Wow. Okay. So for you listening, the message seems to be that whether you're lurking or liking, it might not be filling that social void the way we hope.
That seems to be the implication. Maybe it lacks the depth, the nuance, the presence of being with someone in person. It's a critical point for you to consider.
Okay, just another quick driving tip while we're thinking. Make sure you leave enough space between you and the car in front. Safe following distance is key, especially when traffic's unpredictable.
Good one. Okay, so social media use, both kinds, linked to more loneliness. But didn't the study also find it works the other way around too, like a cycle?
Yes, exactly. This is another really crucial piece for you. They found evidence of a feedback loop. It wasn't just social media use predicting more loneliness.
Loneliness also predicted more social media use.
You got it. People who reported feeling lonelier at the beginning of a year tended to increase their social media use, both active and passive, in the following year.
Ah, so it's like you feel lonely, maybe you go online hoping to connect or distract yourself.
Right.
But according to these findings, that might actually make you feel lonelier in the long run, which could then lead you to spend even more time online, seeking that connection you're missing. It's a potential trap, really.
A cycle that's hard to break out of. You're looking for connection in a place that might not actually provide the right kind.
That's the concern. And Roberts really hammered this home in his conclusions. He said, I think the major takeaway should be that social media use is a poor substitute for person-to-person interaction. Our results suggest that no matter how one uses social media actively or passively, such use leads to higher levels of loneliness.
So it keeps coming back to that point. It's not a replacement for the real thing. It's less about how you click, maybe, and more about the fact that clicking isn't hugging or chatting over coffee.
That seems to be a central message for you to take away. And this obviously raises some pretty big concerns, doesn't it? Especially when you think about younger generation.
Definitely. But hold that thought, another quick safety reminder for everyone driving. Always be extra aware of pedestrians and cyclists, particularly when you're in towns or cities. Look out for them. Okay, so implications, especially for younger people.
Well, yeah, Roberts actually used the phrase coming public crisis. Given how much time younger people spend immersed in social media, if these patterns hold true, more use leading to more loneliness over time, we could be looking at some serious well-being challenges down the road. Something for all of us to think about.
And it's not just young people, though. The study covered a wide age range.
That's right. And interestingly, they saw this trend across the board. As social media use generally increased among all age groups in their sample over those 9 years, so did the reported levels of loneliness. It wasn't confined to one generation.
It is ironic, isn't it? As Roberts pointed out, these platforms designed to connect us might actually be, for many, pushing us further apart emotionally.
It really forces you to step back and think critically about what kind of connection we're getting online versus what we truly need as humans. And just while we're pausing for thought, another reminder for your driving health. Being well rested is so important. If you're feeling tired, please don't drive. Pull over, take a break.
Very important. Okay, so, like all studies, this one isn't perfect. What are the limitations we should keep in mind? What do we need to be cautious about here?
Yeah, that's fair and important for you to know. The researchers themselves are upfront about it. A key limitation is that it relies on self-reports.
Meaning people telling the researchers how much they use social media and how lonely they felt.
Exactly. And our memories aren't always perfect, are they? Plus, there's something called social desirability bias. People might consciously or unconsciously downplay how much time they really spend scrolling, or maybe hesitate to fully admit how lonely they feel.
Right, because maybe they feel they shouldn't be lonely or shouldn't be online so much.
Potentially. So there could be some inaccuracies in the data just based on how it was collected.
So what would make future research even stronger then? How could scientists build on this?
Well, one obvious step would be to use more objective measures of social media use, like actually tracking app usage on phones, with permission, of course, instead of just asking people to estimate.
That would give a clearer picture of actual time spent.
Definitely. And another really interesting avenue for you to think about is digging into the content. Not all social media interaction is the same, right?
No, definitely not. Arguing with strangers feels very different from catching up with family overseas.
Exactly. So future studies could look at whether specific activities, like, say, constantly comparing yourself to others versus engaging in supportive online groups, have different impacts on loneliness, or seeing posts that make you feel left out versus ones that make you feel included.
That makes total sense. The
Yeah.
quality and type of interaction probably matters a lot.
Roberts also specifically mentioned newer platforms, the short form video ones like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. He raised concerns that their potentially highly addictive nature might be even more likely to exacerbate loneliness.
And did he have thoughts on why social media might increase loneliness beyond just displacing real-world time?
Yeah, he mentioned a couple of psychological factors that are relevant for you. One is FOMO, the fear of missing out. Seeing everyone's curated highlight reels can make your own life feel inadequate.
Yeah, we've all felt that, I think.
And related to that is upward social comparison, constantly comparing yourself to people who seem happier, richer, more successful online.
Hmm.
That can really chip away at your self-esteem.
Definitely.
But he also brought it back to a simpler explanation: time. All the hours spent on social media are hours not spent interacting face to face, often meaning you're just physically alone more often.
So it's a double whammy, maybe. Feeling bad because of comparisons and having less actual time for real connection.
That seems to be the idea. And Roberts really stresses that this isn't just about feeling a bit down. He frames loneliness as a major public health crisis.
A health crisis. That sounds serious.
He argues it has real, tangible, negative consequences for individual health, for our relationships, even for work performance, and for society overall. The impacts of rising loneliness, he says, are real and far-reaching.
Wow. That definitely puts it in perspective. It's not just a personal feeling, but potentially a societal problem. Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, what's the single most important takeaway for people listening?
I think the core message for you is that this large, long-term study suggests that however you use social media, whether you're mostly scrolling or actively posting and commenting, it might contribute to feeling lonelier over time. And crucially, it doesn't seem to be an effective replacement for genuine in-person connection.
That's a powerful point to sit with. It really prompts you to think about your own habits, doesn't it? Okay, so here's a final thought for you to mull over. Take a moment to consider your own balance between online life and real-world relationships. Does any of this research ring true for you? And maybe think about one small, deliberate change you could make this week to prioritize an in-person connection, even a brief one. And one last thing before we go, please. Always buckle up. Your seatbelt is your best defense in a crash. Stay safe out there.